Hello, folks. I'm Andrew Gifford. Welcome to this latest edition of Movie Squad. I'm joined here by Phil, who's making his debut,
Boy, howdy, am I ready to talk Star Wars.
and Alex.
Oh, hi.
And today we are going to talk about what's next now that Carrie Fisher, unfortunately, has passed away. Unfortunately, this has kind of left Lucasfilm at a crossroads where they're now having to figure out how to proceed going forward with their Star Wars franchise because Leia is a key character in these movies, and
Yeah.
without her, I mean, it's gonna feel weird. Um, Now, it has been said that Ryan Johnson's Star Wars Episode 8 has Carrie Fisher did finish all her scenes for Episode 8, which is good, but she apparently had an even bigger role in Episode 9. And that leaves them in a weird position now because they're in the process of writing it with Colin Trevorrow. And so now they're having to figure out, okay, what's next? How do we do we write Leia out, or do we give her a send off? Maybe like Paul Walker in Furious 7, where you do a digital recreation of her. I mean, what do you guys think?
Well, I think they're in a really tight spot because honestly, I mean, you could go the Paul Walker route where you give her a proper send off with a digital recreation, but in Furious Seven's kind of, I guess, for lack of a better term, benefit, like they didn't really have a lot to work with Paul Walker, so they had to give him a proper send off in that movie. Whereas with Episode 8 or Episode 9 rather, they don't have any Leia footage whatsoever to work with, and just a random send off in the end where it's like, oh, 2.5 hours have passed and Leia's in the movie, we're gonna give her a send off right now. Or like in the very beginning, she's like, I don't know, either like killed off or whatever. It
Right.
would feel rather jarring, I think, in my opinion. So I feel like if they wanted to give her a send off, they would probably go, because they got time and they got the money. I would see them doing reshoots for Episode 8 and trying
Mm-hmm.
to see if they could try to fit a send off into Episode 8, but we haven't heard anything about discussions of doing reshoots for Episode 8, and I don't know what Ryan Johnson wasn't included in this meeting, I don't think, about what they're going to do for Leia in Episode 9. So honestly, I have no idea really what they're going to do at this point, if they go over to Episode 9.
I think it depends on in Episode 8 where they left off with
Right.
Leia's whole
Yeah.
arc. If the last we see of Leia in Episode 8 was actually like kind of leading into Episode 9 for her to have a bigger part, I'd say yeah, like alter the movie a little bit, like reshoot some of it and get the story to a place by the end of Episode 8 where there really can be no question that, like, yeah, Leia's story's done. Don't leave it hanging.
Yeah, it's just,
See, I
it's
think
kind of
like the
hard.
issue with that, I think like the problem with that is that if they had like that much of the story done, there probably wouldn't be any kind of like finite ending for Leia in Episode 8. And so I think like any part she has in Episode 8 probably would have led into Episode 9.
Yeah.
Right. I
See,
don't know.
I guess
We'll
part
put
of
her
me.
in the mask she wore in Return of the Jedi throughout the entire movie.
See,
No, here's what we do. You mentioned Furious 7. Here's what we do. We end Episode 8 with like a shot-for-shot recreation of the ending of Episode 7.
Luke and
No,
Leia.
no, you don't
Instead
even.
of but instead of street racing cars, you have land speeders, and they end up taking like two separate like lanes, and they end up going separate way. And Leia's speeder goes into sunlight, and
You see,
then
Phil. My suggestion was similar, but I said we just take the exact same footage and we just Photoshop in Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher's faces onto Vin Diesel and digital Paul Walker.
Can we just have like John Williams do like a cover of "See You Again"?
No, we do the exact same thing. See you again. But when it goes for Paul, we'll just cross off Paul with crayon and write in Carrie.
We didn't mention this, but there are two major scenes that were planned for Leia in episode 8 and 9. It's unclear which of these scenes take place in which movie, but the two scenes are Leia was going to reunite with Luke, and there was another scene where she confronts Kylo Ren. Now, I feel like episode 8 probably has the scene with Luke and Leia reuniting.
Yeah.
If that's
there
the
was
case,
a photo that came out.
yeah, I mean, if that's the case, then we don't get one last scene between Leia and Kylo Ren, and that's kind of upsetting.
Well, like if the Kylo Ren scene was shot for episode 8, we don't know for sure, but I'm assuming that was planned for 9. But if it was shot for 8, they can do a thing where like they cut the scene early, maybe like hold on a shot of Kylo Ren, cut the scene off, and then leave it kind of on a cliffhanger, like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? And then later on, maybe like Han Solo'd her off screen, which you would think would be a total backstab, but I feel like if you do it properly, you can make it work. You know what I mean?
I mean, as long as how would you feel if what they did was if they just had Leia die of natural causes in between 8 and 9?
You see, that feels even more like a cop-out, though, because...
Yeah, that's even more of a cop-out, and then you don't get a tribute to her.
Yeah.
See, for me, the perfect example of paying tribute to an actor that died was in Star Trek Beyond that came out this year.
That was
where
great.
they had the character die off camera, but it was still like in movie continuity, and they actually do kind of put the movie plot on pause, and they paid this very moving tribute to Leonard Nimoy. I'm not going to spoil it if you haven't seen it because it's very moving. As a Star Trek fan, I like teared up in the movie kind of watching it. They actually kind of paid tribute to him twice.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
But like that was perfect.
The second
because
tribute is amazing.
Yeah. But like they kind of paused the movie's plot, and I know it's kind of different for Leia because Leia is such an integral character as opposed to Leonard Nimoy's Spock Prime, I think is how they refer to him in the universe.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't as integral, like he was more cameos, and I know it would be kind of difficult to do with Leia, but if they did something like that in 9, I think they could get away with the killing her off camera in between 8 and 9. But I don't think they would do something.
See, I almost wouldn't mind it. We saw in Rogue One that they were able to, recreate Tarkin, Peter Cushing, and yeah, there were some controversial results, but technically speaking, it was pretty good for what the technology can do. And, okay, maybe in episode 8, if they do reshoots and they kind of restructure the story just a little bit, what they could do is one last final scene. Like, you have all of the scenes that Carrie Fisher shot, but then you have one last scene where you do a digital recreation of her. But maybe it's not so much a scene, but more a moment, where you recreate her, where you're not throwing that into 9, you just have it at the end of 8. And I feel like that could maybe work, because that way, too, at least you do have Carrie Fisher's actual final performance in that movie itself, too.
Yeah.
So I don't see that being such a problem. I actually think that could work. But I understand people who would feel like sometimes maybe you should just leave well enough alone and just leave her performance as is.
Well, I think Leia is such an iconic, not just an iconic part of Star Wars, but she's such an iconic role model to women. One of the things you saw most often after she died were all these girls posting, "You taught me that it's okay to look sexy and be a princess, but also, kick butt, take no prisoners, and fend for yourself," and that's still within the realm of a princess. So Leia alone, not just Carrie Fisher, means so much to people, and I think if they killed her off camera, too many people would be upset about it.
Yeah.
And I have to imagine that when Carrie Fisher signed on for this new trilogy, that there was some kind of thing in there where, if something happened to her, that they did have her permission to recreate her somehow to do what they needed to. I mean, Disney gets a $50 million.
Phil, real quick to add to what you just said, Just the other day, the news came out that Carrie Fisher actually really liked uh,
Yeah,
Leia in Rogue One. So there's
yeah,
that. Maybe she wouldn't have been opposed to.
yeah.
So
And I would say that's definitely a break glass in case of emergency thing. Like if they really have to, because like Princess Leia in Rogue One, like I just came out of Rogue One a few hours ago, like 6 hours ago, and like Princess Leia looks good. Like all the screenshots
yeah.
going around have been low quality screenshots, and
Well,
like
it's
yeah, you
also
can tell she's
just
CGI. The line is blurred.
well, part of it though too is like if you freeze frame a CGI character creation, it's a lot easier to tell the flaws. But in the
Right?
movie
Yeah.
itself, it's not so distracting. I personally didn't have a problem with Tarkin. I thought it worked for what the CGI can do.
Yeah.
You know,
I didn't have a problem with either of the digital recreations.
So I think really, as far as whether or not they should do that, I think it's really just a question of is it really ethical and should they preserve Carrie Fisher's performance
I think
as Leia?
ethnically, I think ethnically speaking, it's debatable because really you just kind of with that you really gotta ask yourself. I mean, like, how would the families feel? Because Carrie Fisher's daughter is in these movies, so it's like,
Oh,
how are you
dude,
gonna
yeah.
feel like going to one of
Yeah.
the premiere of like say episode 9 and then just seeing her mother there, but she's just a bunch of
Uh,
sprite. You know what I mean?
I'm sure because she is in the Star Wars movies. I'm sure that her name's Billy Lord. I'm sure she's being involved in all the discussions going on over at Lucasfilm, and
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it is probably I think it's important that we mention though too or acknowledge that you know over at Lucasfilm they're all still mourning. Like they were
yeah,
actually close to
Yeah.
her. Like she was in their family, so it's hard for them not just having to figure out this situation, but it's also just having to move
Yeah.
past losing her.
yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, there
I'm
was a
sure
good
whatever
like
they
a
do, they're going to take their time and really make sure that they
Yeah.
respect, her
yeah.
legacy.
Here's my question: do you think this might cause them to push back episode 9?
I doubt it. I doubt it. If anything, I think because episode 9 is slated for May 2019, right?
It's gonna get
Push
pushed
it
back.
back to December.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If anything, they'll push it back to December.
Getting back to what you were saying, Alex, about maybe them pushing episode 9 back. On Rogue One and Force Awakens, they actually did have to rework both a little bit. I mean, with Rogue One, they had the reshoots. On Force Awakens, even Ryan Johnson had to keep rewriting the script for episode 8 because J.J. Abrams would keep making changes in post production on Force Awakens. So,
Right.
so I mean, they have a history of having to like rework the films
Yeah,
all
and I'm
throughout production. So this isn't that new. It sucks that they lost Carrie
Yeah.
Fisher.
yeah. So really, it's just same shit, but a much more tragic like situation.
Circumstances.
Yeah,
Yeah.
much more tragic.
Right.
Because with the
Yeah,
last
Andrew, you and I were talking before we started rolling that if
Yeah,
anything,
we
they're
were. Yes.
like if anything, they were like 2 or 3 drafts away from being done. So it's not like they're even completely done with the script, but
Yeah.
they'll probably have to do like more substantial rewrites than they intended to at this point.
Yeah. I'm happy that Carrie Fisher just got to do The Force Awakens, help kind of pass the
Yeah.
torch,
yeah,
and hey, we get her in episode 8. I'm just happy that we're gonna get one last movie with her,
yeah,
and then
Yep.
episode 9 is when the new cast are really gonna start coming into their own anyway.
yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, it does make sense. It realistically speaking, like even if Carrie Fisher was alive, and even though if she did have a big role in episode 9, like regardless, the main new three, like Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, and Oscar Isaac, they would have bigger roles than Leia.
But I think they have plenty of time to figure out a plan. They have plenty of time. Like if they need to do reshoots, they still have time. If they need to do a digital recreation of General Organa as she is in this new trilogy, if they need to do a digital recreation, they have time
Yeah.
to like
And they
do
have
that
the
for not. Yeah, they have the money because, like I said, Disney got like I think it was $50 million in an insurance policy because Fisher died.
Yeah, they could take some of that money and actually invest that into reshoots. And even if they do go with like a digital recreation, that could help really smooth the technology over maybe.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and Colin Trevorrow, like, say what you will about Jurassic World, but the digital effects in that movie look amazing.
Anyway, guys, I think we should start to wrap this up. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely options for them right now with Leia.
Yeah,
A
Yeah.
lot of great options.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm really not concerned at all.
peace and keep coming back to the channel for more videos coming soon.
yeah,
Leave
definitely.
your comments for what you would like to see them do with Princess Leia down below.